And one day, you're going to show me what fascinates you so much in that box.
Ain't too time yet, boy. You not ready to learn about the real past?
Yeah, that's right. You young folks always looking over in Africa or running to California somewhere trying to find yourself. See, that's how them Caucasians beat us every time. Divide and conquer.
And trick.
You know what, guys? I'm really not trying to debate about no white people right about now.
Debate? See, this is non-debatable, son. The Moors are the original free white persons. Now, that has nothing to do with being Caucasian. White is a legal term, not a skin color. Look it up in Black's Law Dictionary.
Get an old 4th edition, though, before 1970 when they really started to leave.
Out of the Western Sudan would come a great general, Tarak Ben Zad Jabral Tarak. He would discover a weakness in Spain fighting the Goths and the Visigoths and the Vandals fighting among themselves. The dissident element of Spain would do something white people rarely ever do. They would sneak across into Africa and tell the Africans how weak the whites are. And said they are so weak, if you want to conquer them, it's an easy thing to do. Jabral would send a testing army, about 10,000, just to test our lines. You find it is easy. Then later, he would send 60,000. He'd take Spain. Now this is purely an African conquest. You're not dealing with the Arab conquest of Spain at first, because the Arabs were not there at first. The initial conquest of Spain was African, not Arab. That army came from the Senegamia, now Senegal, and parts of what is now Mauritania.
But I'm a Moor. Islam. I'm a Moor. Got sense enough to know I'm a Moor. And ain't gonna never argue with you that I'm not a Moor. And wouldn't come in your house or come among you and say I'm a Moor if I didn't feel in my heart, in my mind, in my soul that I am. I tell you, goddammit, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Moor. I mean, you know. Drew Ali, huh? Prophet Noble Drew Ali taught us about the caving, and he taught us that we are the Asiatic people. We are the Asiatics. We have people now that want to fight us, attack us. So you mean you become so degenerate and so sick until you will call yourself an Asiatic instead of an African? Well, I use African just for communication. But our lessons ask the question, why? Why what? One of my 5%ers that's in the Panther Party. Why what? Why does the devil call us Africans? And it goes on to say, let's look at it, brothers and sisters. Brother Henry touched on it last night. Do you know that one time the whole earth was called Asia? North Asia, South Asia, East Asia, West Asia. When we say Asiatic, we're not talking about a little continent. We're not stuck on some little so-called Arabs riding some camels. And so we so stuck on them, we just got stuck on stupid. And we started saying Asiatic. We're not talking about a continent. We're talking about when the land mass of what is called planet Earth was different. Huh? Even Saudi Arabia. Let's cover another point here before we finish Asiatic. Saudi Arabia, Israel, Mecca, Medina, all of that is in what is called Africa today. Egypt. Look at Egypt on the map and the white man want to tell you it's not in Africa. It's in the Middle East. There is no Middle East. No Middle East. Absolutely not. The Middle East is nothing but a man-made ditch separated from the mainland of Africa by what is called the Suez Canal. All of it is northeast, what is called Africa today. All of it. Look at it for what it's worth, brothers and sisters. But at one time, the whole planet, look at South America and what is called Africa today. Cut them out and you can fit them together like a puzzle piece. The planet Earth was different as it is called today. It had a different landmass. We're called Asiatics, again, not because of a continent, because at one time the whole planet was called Asia. You just want to claim a spot? Or the whole thing? Africa is not our home. Let me let that hang in the atmosphere for a while. I said at this gathering of the masters, Africa is not your home. It's not our home. Africa, as it is called today, is our throne. And from that throne, we ruled our home, which is 196,940,000 square miles of the planet Earth, and 76 quintillion miles throughout the distance of the diameter and the sphere of light of the diameter of the universe.
To the impact that the Moors had on Europe. Dr. Bay, if you would begin by giving us some background of both the Moors and the Europeans and kind of a time frame that we may begin and progress through this dramatic period of history.
Well, generally when we talk about the Moors, and I should say that I appreciate your introduction referring to me as a world authority, I can only say that I've spent a little bit of time, about 12 years, researching the legacy of the Moors, the history of the Moors. The Moors are a somewhat difficult topic because there's so much confusion around the identity issue. And the reason for that has a lot to do with the presence of these people in Europe. And they play such a profound role in the history of Europe that to allow them to be recognized as an African people would result in the alteration of the West's image of itself. The Moors are recognized by most historians as having been a predominantly Africoid African people who entered into the Iberian Peninsula of what is now Spain and Portugal in the 8th century from northwest Africa. And these peoples spoke Arabic, various Berber dialects from the continent of Africa. They brought into Europe not only their own cultural attributes of being African, coming from various parts of the African continent, parts of what's called the Maghreb, Northwest Africa, West Africa, but they also brought much culture from areas of Asia, because as a Muslim people, they were carrying the accoutrements of ancient Persia, China, India, parts of the Asian world that had either been Islamicized or had been in extensive contact with the Islamic world through trade and or conflict. So the Moors represent an African people who have a very international link to other parts of the world because of the religion of Islam, which is established about a century or more earlier than the Moorish invasion into Spain and Portugal, what becomes Spain and Portugal. Their reasons for coming into the Iberian Peninsula have to do with an interest in expanding the territory of the Islamic world. It also has to do with actually seeking to assist those persons who were of African ancestry and Semitic peoples who were in Spain and Portugal. In fact, one of the accounts that's also given about this Moorish invasion, this African Muslim invasion into Spain, involves the Sephardic community, the Jewish community, having sent emissaries and information coming out into the area of northwest Africa under various rulers who had heard essentially about the Iberian Peninsula, which at that time was under the control of the Church of, it's called the Arian Church, but Arian as in under Arius, A-R-I-U-S. Arius, who was remembered as a somewhat of a Christian heretic for his unique interpretation of the gospel. And the followers of Arius included people like Roderick, who was a Visigothic ruler in the Iberian Peninsula, who also had opposition from the Church of, it's called the Arian Church, but Arian as in under Arius, A-R-I-U-S. Arius, who was remembered as a somewhat of a Christian heretic for his unique interpretation of the gospel. And the followers of Arius included people like Roderick, who was a Visigothic ruler in the Iberian Peninsula, who also had opposition from Greek Orthodox groups that had settled in the Iberian Peninsula. And then you, of course, had the remnants of the Roman presence, the Roman elites, Hispani Visigoths, who were in the region. Now, the region had always been occupied by Africans. There had always been African people coming up into the Iberian Peninsula long before 711 of the Common Era. But the Moors coming in at that time signals the arrival of an African Muslim populace that secures control of much of the region for the purpose of conquest and exploitation of the territory.
There came a time in 1506, after we lost power in Spain. The Africans ruled Spain from 711. We were calling ourselves Moors, M-A-U-E-R-S, then M-O-O-R-S. We were calling ourselves Moors.
He wanted to say something to all of us, and I would like us to be respectful of our elder and hear what brother has to say. Has written the most scholarly works on the history of our struggle. We ought to make his life as comfortable and peaceful and let him know how much we thank God for the womb that bore him and for the loins out of which this great man came. He wanted to say a word to us, so let us listen.
I regret that my speech isn't as it used to be. But I am a man that lives in a library instead of a apartment. I have about 35,000 books. I have a few hundred books, engineering books. I don't have mother and father. My people, my father's people, was born in Ethiopia and they had run out. My mother's people are born in Puerto Rico and don't give a hoot about me. I have looked for a place to put my book. A black place. I've looked in Georgia. Everywhere there is black people supposedly owning universities and colleges. I haven't found out. I looked in the United States. I haven't found that anywhere. But I looked and I listened a few days. From the time I went, not that I hadn't heard, but from the time 3 or 4 weeks ago I went to 125th Street on 5th Avenue. I have been invited many times by Brother Florida to come to Chicago for this day. And I've turned it down. I always wear a hat out of respect to let I refuse to wear that. And I'm going to say this. I'm meeting with my children and I'm going to tell them the mosque, 127th Street, can come to the house center representative and so forth. I will give you any time you come there my engineering books that I went to college. That's what I started. And I generally go to a shop someplace. But I'm giving you now, you can take these my engineering books now. And I'm saying, when I passed away, because I'm going to die, I'm 83 years old. All the other books, and they are works that the big college, the black college in Georgia,
V4 Vendetta Beats Production.
I have books that go back in the 16th century, and they belong to Jews and the nation of black people.
By reducing their mentality to that of Negroes, blacks, and colored people. As a man thinketh, so is he. Moors sleep too much. Wake up and see the 7 bridges crossing in the sky. Can you see that you are people? Not an organization. We are a people. We are a nation.
V4 Vendetta Beats Production.
Noble Drew Ali was the first black man among us to bring Islam to black people. History will always record him. Always, because he started that process of growth into Islam. He was a good mother. He fed those that would feed from him
But in 1929, he went off to sea. What they did was attempt to destroy that movement totally and completely, and it dwindled all the way down to nothing. Martin Luther King Jr., they didn't mind you feeding from him till he got dangerous. But any black man that will teach you to love everybody, that's a man that white folk will back up. You didn't hear me? The white man knows he's not an object that should be loved. He knows this. When you tell white people you love them, they know they got a fool on their hands.
Timothy Drew, who had left the Ahmadiyya movement in 1913 under the leadership of Mufti Muhammad Sadiq, would soon be as popular as the deported Honorable Marcus Garvey. Timothy Drew, who had changed his name to Noble Drew Ali, had started his own form of black nationalism and religion. By 1928, Drew Ali's movement had set up 17 temples in the United States of America.
About Minister Farrakhan, because when I was in South Dakota in '96, actually, I stayed with one of the chiefs in Wagner. And when I went to the school, after I had finished meeting with one of the chiefs, he told me, he said, you know, one of the people who was just here recently was Minister Farrakhan. And we as Lakota people have a great deal of respect for him because he speaks up for those of us who are of color, the red man and the black man. And I thought that was interesting because it reminded me of a Hopi prophecy. The Hopi are an indigenous people that live in the Southwest. They live primarily in the state of Arizona. And the Hopi say that there will be a time after the close of this millennium when the black man will lead another revolution. And this revolution will be bloodier than the first. And after the revolution, according to this prophecy, the Native Americans will be empowered once again because of the efforts of the black man. Now that's not my prophecy, that's a Hopi, that's a Native American prophecy. Now the Hopi are a peaceful people. Actually, so are we when we're unprovoked. But the idea of recognizing that there is this link, there's this connection in our fate is something that we have to remain mindful of. From a Moorish science perspective, where the founder and prophet, Noble Drew Ali, in conveying something known as the Moorish Quran, or the Circle 7 Quran, talked about the uniting of Asia. Asia represents the whole. Asia represents all peoples of color. Asiatic, in fact, is a reference to the same, much as the Nation of Islam will use the term in a similar fashion. They refer to the Asiatic black man. We as Moors talk about Moors being under the umbrella of being Asiatics. You're talking about people of color. Native Americans are referred to as Canaanites in Moorish tradition. Let me read to you a section from the Moorish Quran that actually got me thinking about looking at this link, so that when I then spoke with Dr. McIntyre before she returned to the ancestors, this was my frame of reference when I first met her back in 1989. It says, their dominion There meaning Moabite and Canaanite. Their dominion extended from northwest and southwest Africa, across the great Atlantis, even unto the present North, South, and Central America, and also Mexico and the Atlantis Islands. Before the great earthquake, which caused the great Atlantic Ocean. This reference is to an ancient period, pre-Columbian, before Columbus. This reference is to a period before a great shaking of the earth, or a great earthquake. A great shaking which again the Hopi refer to as having occurred before and will occur again. The great Atlantis Islands is a reference to the Caribbean. But this idea of the dominion of the Moors, the dominion of African peoples, at one time having extended into the Americas, is what is being presented. Now, Moabite and Canaanite are both understood to be references to Asiatic and African peoples. When you use the term Moabites, you're talking about the ancient peoples of Moab. We have a tendency very often as African peoples to not recognize and not understand that African peoples didn't just reside on the continent known as Africa. African peoples are also in what we refer to as the Holy Lands. So when you talk about Jordan, and when you talk about ancient Israel, you're talking about African or Africoid peoples.
If there was no Moors. Remember, they got all of their doctrine. They try to give the impression that the shrine was founded in Saudi Arabia, when in actuality the shrine comes out of Alhambra, which was a Moorish mosque built in Spain by us. And they got their doctrine from a Moor named Moya. If you see the picture of Madame Blavatsky, you see the side of her Saint Germain, and you see on the other side of her Kutumbi, and behind her is a man in a white imam, and an azaba and a jalabiya, the bed, where he was a Moor. And he's the one who gave them some of the secrets. They only have 3 of the 9 degrees. The 3 degrees they hold are trivial. They don't have nothing to do with the science of the universe. They will tell you that they hold the science of the universe. They don't hold the science. Anything other than that, they're still babies. So they do acknowledge it. And they will read the books. They will study the doctrine. They'll know you got the truth. Right? But they don't have any information you need. As more as we hold the secret of the universe. And we're revealing it today, and that's why they're coming over. You understand? They will spade COVID to find out whether right knowledge is in place. And even then, they have taken a vow, right, of secrecy, to hold a secret, which is no more than a secret to a play. It's a play that was being done in Solomon's temple. A play. That's all it was. And they reenact this play in the lodge. That's all. They do not have any deep secrets. We didn't give them anything. We gave them certain things to protect until this day and time when the Moors come again.
Today, we are dealing with the science of the Moors. Who are the Moors? This is one of the most difficult of historical questions, and in fact, this is the most neglected chapter in black history.
One thing about the European, he doesn't like us organized. And so, regardless if you agree with the Moorish Temple of America or not, regardless if you agree with the Nation of Islam or not, regardless if you agree with the Hebrew Israelites or not, they are organized group. And they're organized for an express purpose to get to a certain destination or liberation. So why would one try to attack those who organizing to move in a certain destination for the sake of the bad people? Unless you're part of the greater whole. You're part of the greater whole. You see, because even like the guy said, religion is fake. Okay, it's not for you, but you don't condemn those who are organizing to move for a greater good or a better cause. Because at that point, you become a part of the problem, then more of the solution. You can't change nothing without organization, whether you like it.
And all praises be to the Almighty Creator, the Creator of everything it is, was, and evermore shall be. Amen. We give honors to the angel of Allah who bring us the everlasting gospel of Allah.
Just for the record, I'm a Moorish American Aboriginal Indigenous man.
Hold on, I'm going to write this down.
I'm a Moorish American Aboriginal Indigenous man.
You're talking too fast. Moorish American Aboriginal
Indigenous sovereign man. Okay? And can jurisdiction be proven for the record? I'm here under threat, duress, and coercion. Because I'm here, I'm not here on my own free will, other than threat, duress, and coercion. Don't ask me, am I going to proceed with attorneys? This is my society. And my greatest society exists beyond these walls. They have power of attorney, a written agreement, contractually. That's a constitutional right for us to be able to enter into.
What do you want them to do? Who is it actually that holds the power of attorney?
My entire council. This is my council.
And what do you want them to do?
Council. Dismiss this case because this court has no jurisdiction, and the complaint warrant, according to the governing rules of the courtroom for the state of New Jersey, hasn't been signed.
I agree with you. I agree with you that you have raised that issue and it needs to be resolved. And the record shall so reflect that you have raised it and that I have told you that. Cheyenne Matuda Cushmarel, you should be clear in your mind that I am issuing no threats to you. As I said before, you've been exceedingly polite and courteous. I think I've been polite and courteous. These are the dates that I have. Monday, January 5th, Monday, January 12th, Tuesday, the 20th, and Monday, the 26th. Any of those days better than another for you?
I'm not subject to the court's jurisdiction, so I will not be able to physically attend any of the court hearings.
Well, appear metaphysically then. The 20th at 9 a.m. And if you're not able to be here physically, you can be here metaphysically. What we will decide on that day is we will do the briefing schedule so that we can decide the issue of jurisdiction.
Okay.
And then jurisdiction. Jurisdiction is going to determine what area, what geographical area encompasses the authority that that judge or that court has. All right? So if you're in a municipal court or a court of common pleas, don't go in there talking about the Constitution because they don't have jurisdiction to discuss the Constitution with you. Do not go into a state court discussing the Constitution unless it's the state's Constitution, because the United States' Constitution they have no jurisdiction over, but they won't tell you that. They'll dismiss the case. Different jurisdictions. And don't go into federal court talking about city ordinances. You understand the difference? Okay, jurisdiction. Then adjudication. Once you get to the part about adjudication, you have to ask the question, do you understand the law that applies to you, that applies to this matter? Because there's two types of jurisdiction, jurisdiction over the matter and jurisdiction over the person. All right? Does the court have both? They must have both in order to proceed. They don't tell you these things, but this is very important. That's this flag that we carry with the red flag, with the 5-pointed green star, with the pointing up, all right, is a worldwide flag. It's recognized all around the world, all right? So, the reason we have colorable courts and colorable law is because during the Civil War, when the Moors warred against each other, there were those who agreed to participate in the game called the corporate ward game. And there were many who made a lot of money. They got a commission on everybody they got to sign a birth certificate, because the birth certificate is a contract that puts you in slavery. And many of us agree to be slaves. We don't need colorable courts and colorable law otherwise. But the people who agree to be bound by the 14th Amendment, which covers civil rights, which covers Negroes and African Americans and Jews and Hispanics and Indians and all these people like that.
This is page 5, and I want everyone to see that. This is where it begins, of the Moorish literature. It will be hard to get from people who have been suppressing the Prophets movement However, go on the internet, go get with some other Moors that are really doing the prophet's work and communicating this information to the ignorant for their instruction, and I'm sure you'll pick up some interesting points.
The connections between Native Americans and the Moors. Now, part of this comes from my having
tribes. Tribes are extended families. Now, when these tribes come together collectively, this is where you have nationhood, all right? And then nations will make up empires. So when our people, dark melanated people, were ruling the world, this is when we had empires composed of what? Nations. When you speak to someone of the African diaspora, somebody from the continent of Africa, the first thing they're gonna tell you is their tribal affiliation. Whether it may be Fulani, Mori, Zulu, so on and so forth. Now, then these countries then become what you call nations. Now, we know that there was a particular time in history when Europeans came with colonialism and brought Christianity. But we have to trace back how our ancestors were living and manifesting on a high level of conscious spirituality prior to the European coming here, coming to the Americas or coming to Africa.
The Quran teaches the believers black power. Put it like this, teaching the believers on some black stuff. That I created Adam of black mud, molded into shape, and breathed my spirit into him. Of black mud, we put an emphasis on. We talking about black that hold all black elements of the earth. The blue represents the spirit, represent that cosmic energy, like prana, from the universal law, of all universal law, which we happen to say it is all law, all law, A-L-L-L-A-W, all law, the root of that word. All universal law, no mystery. Who made you? All law. This universal law, which we can simply say is universal force, with vibration, magnetic energy, producing electromagnetics. So we got the male and the female. Who made it? This is a law. And it takes all law to produce this original man. Who is, or what is, should I say, all law? He's the father of the universe. Here we go. All universal law admits the law, push forth as a masculine energy that you constantly be reminded of your nature to do what's right. On a feminine level, it would be constantly absorbed, so it wouldn't be able to touch you in a manner that is penetrating you. It'll be more pulling to you, forcing you to do. You got free will. So we're talking about a more masculine. So we're talking about a father of the universe.